Hello, I'm the masked amp. I've got a mask and I'm an amp, which is approved mental health professional. I'm going to take this off. It's better. Well, during lockdown I've been looking back on my career, which goes back to 1981, when I was a mental welfare officer under the 1959 Mental Health Act. Then I became an ASW and eventually an approved mental health professional. And I've been thinking back on the 650 odd Mental Health Act assessments I've done over that period, and just thinking about some of the people that I've assessed under the Mental Health Act. And this story is about Dolores and her cat. Dolores was a lady in her 60s who lived alone in a housing association bungalow. She had a history of schizophrenia going back 30 or more years. Periodically, she would decide to have a break from medication. This would then lead to a gradual deterioration in her mental state until she reached a point when she could no longer care for herself adequately and was terrorising her neighbours. I'd known her on and off for about 15 years, being called on periodically to assess her under the Mental Health Act when all other avenues had been tried. I'd last seen Dolores a few months previously, when she'd managed to stop having her regular injection by the cunning expedient of informing her community nurse that she was moving out of the area. The local older people's mental health service had fallen for this ruse for several months, until they were eventually alerted to the fact that she was still in her bungalow, when they restarted to receive reports that she had destroyed her pension book, had thrown out her furniture and all her electrical equipment, and was then arrested after she broke an elderly neighbour's window and made threats to kill her. I had then detained her under Section 3 of the Mental Health Act for up to 6 months. After a couple of months, she recovered and returned home. Since she was reluctant to have a depot injection, she was discharged on oral medication. This was just what she wanted. She soon stopped taking her tablets, and before long, reports were again being received that she was behaving in bizarre and unacceptable ways. I was again asked to assess her. Knowing Dolores had a cat, I had already made tentative plans for it to be looked after, and even had a cat basket in the boot of my car just in case. I went out with her consultant psychiatrist, her GP, her community nurse, and an AMP trainee. Dolores allowed us into the house, but was suspicious of our motives. She believed that the only reason we were there was so that we could take her bungalow from her and live in it ourselves, perhaps as some sort of mental health professional commune. She was keen to challenge her diagnosis of schizophrenia with some intriguing logical constructs, which went like this. 1. People with schizophrenia hear voices. She does not hear voices. Therefore, she does not have schizophrenia. 2. The Yorkshire Ripper has schizophrenia. She is not the Yorkshire Ripper. Therefore, she does not have schizophrenia. She took a copy of the Oxford Companion to the Mind from her bookshelf. I've read all about schizophrenia in this book, she said, so you can't pull the wool over my eyes. Here, see what it says for yourself. She threw the book at me, which I was fortunately able to dodge. If I've learned anything in my years as an AMP, it is always to be ready to take evasive action. We decided she did need detaining. Not surprisingly, Dolores objected. In the circumstances, I felt it was wise to call the police, who very obligingly attended She liked the police. If there's something else I've learned, it's that older ladies who are being detained under the Mental Health Act are often partial to a man in uniform. While we waited for the ambulance, I decided to complete the necessary arrangements to accommodate Dolores' cat. The cat was not happy about having a house full of strangers. The cat was also not happy about the plan to remove it. It hid behind a sideboard. When we moved the sideboard, it ran off and hid behind the curtain. When we moved the curtain, it ran into the kitchen and hid under a kitchen cabinet. When I reached under to get it, it ran out of the kitchen and into the bedroom, where it secreted itself first behind the wardrobe and then under the bed. The AMP trainee was keen to help. She crawled under the bed and after a scuffle emerged triumphantly with the cat in her hands, which we popped into the cat basket. However, this was not the only thing the AMP trainee had emerged with. The cat had understandably been frightened by the strangers in the bungalow and by our efforts to catch it. It had been very frightened. So frightened that it had emptied its bowels under the bed. The product of this action was now liberally smeared all over the AMP trainee's blouse. So, while I went off with Dolores and the ambulance to the hospital, the AMP trainee went home to have a shower and change her clothes. Well, thank you for listening.